The letter from the Homeowners Association arrived on a Tuesday morning, and I nearly choked on my coffee when I read the first line demanding I remove my dock within 14 days or face daily fines of $500. My name is Zachary Brennan, and I had built that dock with my own two hands over the course of 3 weekends last summer. It extended 30 feet from my backyard into Lake Hartwell in South Carolina, a perfectly legal structure that I had permits for. The dock was my sanctuary, where I spent early mornings with a fishing rod and evenings watching the sunset paint the water orange and purple. The letter, signed by one Patricia Morrison, president of the Willow Creek HOA, claimed my dock violated community standards and was an eyesore that negatively impacted property values. I read the letter 3 times, my blood pressure rising with each pass. I had purchased my house 2 years ago specifically because it had waterfront access. The previous owner had mentioned the HOA was relatively hands-off, mostly concerned with keeping lawns mowed and houses painted in approved colors. This dock demand came out of nowhere. I grabbed my phone and called the number listed at the bottom of the letter. A woman answered on the second ring with a clipped, professional tone. Willow Creek HOA, Patricia speaking. Hi, this is Zachary Brennan from 847 Lakeview Drive. I just received a letter about my dock. Oh yes, Mr. Brennan. Her voice took on a saccharine quality that immediately set my teeth on edge. We have been monitoring your property, and the board unanimously decided that your dock needs to be removed. It does not match the aesthetic standards we are trying to maintain in our community. I have permits for that dock, I said, keeping my voice level. The county approved everything. It is completely legal. That may be, but your HOA agreement supersedes county permits when it comes to community standards. I suggest you review your contract. You have 14 days. Can I at least attend a board meeting to discuss this? This seems extreme. Patricia sighed, as if I were an annoying child asking too many questions. Our next meeting is not for another month. The decision has already been made, Mr. Brennan. 14 days. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone. My dock was solid, well-built, and matched several other docks along the lakefront in neighboring communities. I had specifically chosen composite materials that would not rot or require excessive maintenance. If anything, it added value to my property, not detracted from it. I pulled out the thick folder containing all my closing documents and found the HOA agreement buried near the back. I spent the next hour reading through pages of dense legal language. The section on waterfront structures was vague, stating only that any additions to properties must be approved by the board in writing before construction. My stomach dropped. I had gotten county approval but had never thought to ask the HOA. That oversight was now going to cost me thousands of dollars. I called my real estate agent, Monica, who had helped me buy the house. She remembered the property well. Zach, I am so sorry. I should have made sure you knew about that clause. But honestly, there were 3 other docks on the street when you bought. I assumed it would not be an issue. Were there any restrictions mentioned during the sale? Nothing specific. The HOA seemed inactive on that front. This is really strange. Have you met Patricia Morrison? Only on the phone just now. She was not exactly friendly. Monica laughed, but it sounded forced. Patricia moved into the neighborhood about 8 months ago. She ran for HOA president immediately and won because nobody else wanted the job. Word is she has been making changes, trying to upgrade the community image. A few other homeowners have complained about various things, but nothing this severe. After we hung up, I decided to drive around the neighborhood. Willow Creek had about 200 homes, most built in the 80s and 90s. It was solidly middle class, with well-kept yards and friendly neighbors. Nothing about it screamed luxury community that would justify this level of scrutiny. I drove down to the lakefront area. There were 5 other houses with water access. 2 had small docks similar to mine. 1 had a boathouse. Another had a large composite deck that extended over the water. The 5th house had a boat lift and a jet ski dock. My setup was actually the most modest of the group. I parked and knocked on the door of the house with the boathouse. An older man answered, probably in his 70s, with a friendly face and a golf shirt. "Help you?" "Hi, I am Zach Brennan from down the street. I have a question about the HOA and waterfront structures." His expression darkened immediately. "You got a letter from Patricia, did you not, this morning, demanding I remove my dock?" He opened the door wider. "Come in. We need to talk." His name was Frank Miller, and he had lived in Willow Creek for 30 years. His wife, Susan, joined us in their living room with coffee and cookies. They both looked tired when I mentioned Patricia's name. "She has been a nightmare," Susan said. "We got a letter 2 months ago demanding we paint our boathouse. Never mind that it has been the same color for 15 years and was approved by previous boards. She wants everything to match some vision she has." "Did you paint it?" Frank shook his head. "We fought back, hired a lawyer. Turns out she was overstepping her authority. The HOA bylaws require a full board vote for major decisions, and she had been making unilateral choices. We threatened to sue and she backed down, but it cost us $3,000 in legal fees. She is trying to force me out within 14 days. "That is not legal either," Frank said. "The bylaws require a 30-day notice minimum, and you have the right to appeal to the full board. She is banking on people not knowing the rules and just complying." Susan leaned forward. "There is something else you should know. Patricia bought the house 3 doors down from you. The one with the white columns, I knew it. Large house, immaculate lawn, definitely the most upscale property on our street. She paid cash, which was unusual," Susan continued, "but Frank did some digging. She is a real estate developer. She has been buying properties in older neighborhoods, getting on HOA boards and basically harassing homeowners until they sell cheap. Then she buys the properties, flips them, and resells for a profit. That cannot be legal." "It is not," Frank said, "but it is hard to prove. She is careful. The harassment comes through official HOA channels, so it looks legitimate unless you dig deeper. Why would she target my dock specifically? Waterfront properties are worth more. If she can force you to remove attractive features or make ownership miserable, you might sell cheap. She has probably already got a buyer lined up or plans to buy it herself." I felt anger building in my chest. "So what do I do?" "Fight back," Frank said. "Document everything, get a lawyer, and whatever you do, do not remove that dock." I spent that evening researching property law and HOA regulations in South Carolina. I discovered something interesting in my title documents. My property deed included a specific description of my lot boundaries. The language was old, dating back to when the neighborhood was first developed in 1984. It stated clearly that my property line extended 50 feet into the water from the natural shoreline at average water levels. This was not uncommon for waterfront properties. The developer had included water rights with certain lots to make them more valuable. I pulled up the original plat map filed with the county and confirmed it. My property line was marked clearly, extending into the lake. My dock was only 30 feet long. It did not even reach the edge of my property boundary. I called a property lawyer first thing Wednesday morning. Her name was Jennifer Wu, and she specialized in real estate disputes. I explained the situation, and she asked me to come in that afternoon with all my documents. Jennifer's office was in downtown Anderson, about 30 minutes from my house. She was younger than I expected, probably mid-30s, with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. She spent 20 minutes reviewing my paperwork while I sat across from her desk. "This is interesting," she finally said. "Your property rights are very clear. The dock is entirely on your property. The HOA has no authority over structures built on your land within your property boundaries. So I can ignore the letter." "Not quite. You still need to respond formally. And we should attend the next board meeting to make your position clear. But yes, legally, they cannot force you to remove a structure built on your own property, especially one you have county permits for." "What about the HOA agreement I signed?" "That clause about board approval is standard, but it typically applies to structures that affect common areas or neighbor sight lines. Your dock is on your property and does not obstruct anyone's view or access. Any reasonable interpretation would not cover your situation." Patricia said their decision was final. Jennifer smiled, and it was not friendly. "Patricia does not get to make final decisions. That is not how HOAs work, even when the president wants to act like a dictator. I will draft a response letter explaining your property rights and requesting a formal board hearing. We will also include the survey and plat map showing your boundaries." "How much is this going to cost me?" "My retainer is $2,000. If this goes to litigation, it will be more. But honestly, I think once we push back with documentation, they will fold. Most HOA disputes do not make it to court." I wrote the check, hoping she was right. Jennifer sent the letter Thursday via certified mail. In it, she politely but firmly explained that my dock was located entirely within my property boundaries, that I had obtained all necessary county permits, and that the HOA had no authority to demand its removal. She requested a formal hearing before the full board and noted that any fines imposed would be contested. I did not hear anything back on Friday or over the weekend. I spent Saturday on my dock, fishing and enjoying the peace. A few neighbors waved from their yards. One stopped by while I was cleaning my catch. "Heard Patricia is giving you trouble," he said. His name was Tom, and he lived 2 houses down on the non-waterfront side. Word travels fast. She sent a letter to half the neighborhood last month. Something about restricting exterior paint colors to her approved list. Most people ignored it. She backed down when someone pointed out the bylaws do not give her that authority. "Why does she keep overstepping?" Tom shrugged. "Power trip, investment strategy, who knows? But you are not the first person she has targeted, and you probably will not be the last. Good luck with it." Monday morning brought another letter, this one even more aggressive. Patricia claimed I was in violation of community standards, and that fines would begin accruing on the 15th day if the dock was not removed. The letter made no mention of my attorney's response or my property boundaries. I forwarded it to Jennifer immediately. She called me within an hour. "This is harassment at this point. She received our letter. I have the delivery confirmation. She is ignoring documented proof of your property rights. That is a problem for her, not you. What do we do?" "I am going to request an emergency board meeting." The bylaws allow for special sessions if a homeowner requests one in writing with proper cause. This qualifies. We will force this issue to a head before she can start imposing fines. Jennifer drafted another letter, this one invoking specific sections of the HOA bylaws requiring a special board meeting within 7 days of a written request. She cited my property documentation and Patricia's continued harassment, despite clear evidence of her lack of authority. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday evening at the community center. I spent the week preparing. Jennifer advised me to document everything about my dock, its construction, the permits, and the property boundaries. I took dozens of photos from every angle. I got written statements from the county permit office confirming everything was built to code and properly approved. I had my original survey blown up into a large poster board showing the property lines extending into the water. Frank and Susan offered to attend the meeting as support. So did Tom and two other neighbors who had dealt with Patricia's overreach. Monday evening arrived with a thunderstorm. Rain pounded the windshield as I drove to the community center. Jennifer met me in the parking lot, carrying a leather briefcase and an umbrella. We ran inside together. The community center was a plain rectangular building with beige walls and fluorescent lights. The main room had been set up with a table at the front for the board members and rows of folding chairs facing it. About 30 people were already seated, far more than I expected. Patricia sat at the center of the front table. She was exactly what I had pictured. Mid-50s, blonde highlighted hair cut in a severe bob, expensive blazer, and a pinched expression like she smelled something unpleasant. Two other board members flanked her, both looking uncomfortable. Jennifer and I took seats in the front row. Frank and Susan sat behind us. The room buzzed with conversation. At exactly 7 p.m., Patricia called the meeting to order by banging a gavel against the table. We are here tonight for a special session requested by Mr. Zachary Brennan regarding the dock violation on his property. Mr. Brennan, you have 10 minutes to state your case. Jennifer stood. I am Jennifer Wu, Mr. Brennan's legal counsel. We are here because you have demanded he remove a structure that is entirely within his property boundaries and for which he has all proper permits. Your demand has no legal basis. Patricia's eyes narrowed. The HOA agreement clearly states that all structures must be pre-approved by the board. That clause applies to structures affecting common areas or neighboring properties. Mr. Brennan's dock is on his property, does not obstruct any views, and does not impact any shared spaces. Jennifer pulled out the survey and held it up so everyone could see. This is the official property survey. Mr. Brennan's lot extends 50 feet into the water from the shoreline. His dock is only 30 feet long. It is entirely on his land. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Patricia's face flushed. That survey is outdated. Property lines change. This survey was completed during his purchase 2 years ago and is filed with the county. Property lines do not change unless legally modified through recorded documents. There are no such documents. Would you like to see the county plat map as well? Jennifer pulled out another document. Patricia's jaw tightened. The board has determined that the dock violates community aesthetic standards. What specific standard? Jennifer asked. Please cite the section of the bylaws. Patricia shuffled papers. Section 7, subsection 3. All external structures must maintain community harmony. That is deliberately vague language intended to address issues like unusual paint colors or offensive decorations. It does not give you blanket authority to demand removal of permitted structures on private property. Furthermore, there are multiple other docks in this community that predate Mr. Brennan's and you have not targeted them. Can you explain why those docks were grandfathered in? By what mechanism? Show me the documentation. Patricia had no response. One of the other board members, a nervous-looking man in his 60s, cleared his throat. Patricia, maybe we should table this discussion. I was not aware of the property boundary issue. The decision has been made, Robert, Patricia snapped. Actually, it has not, Jennifer said. According to your bylaws, major decisions like this require a vote by the full board. Did you hold such a vote? We had an email discussion. Email discussions do not constitute official votes unless properly documented and recorded in meeting minutes. Were they? Silence. Jennifer pressed on. Furthermore, Mr. Brennan was not given proper notice. Your bylaws require 30 days minimum for compliance with structural changes. You gave him 14. That alone invalidates your demand. Patricia stood, her face red. This is exactly the kind of entitled attitude that is ruining this community. Rules exist for a reason. If we let everyone do whatever they want, property values will plummet. Property values. A woman in the third row stood up. You mean like how you have been harassing people to sell their houses cheap so you can flip them? The room erupted. Multiple people started talking at once. Patricia banged her gavel repeatedly. That is completely inappropriate and unfounded. Frank stood. Is it? You are a real estate developer, Patricia. You bought your house cash. You immediately ran for HOA president, and you have been sending threatening letters to anyone with waterfront property. That is not a coincidence. This meeting is out of order, Patricia shouted. Jennifer's voice cut through the chaos. If you impose any fines on Mr. Brennan or continue this harassment, we will file suit against the HOA and you, personally, for abuse of authority and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We have documented everything. Your attempts to force removal of a legal structure on private property constitute harassment, especially given your financial interest in acquiring waterfront properties. Robert, the other board member, stood. I move that we drop this entire matter. The dock stays. All in favor. The third board member, a woman who had not spoken yet, immediately raised her hand. Aye, Robert said. Patricia glared at them both. You cannot do this without my approval. Actually, we can, Robert said. That is how voting works, 2-1. The dock stays and we are done harassing Mr. Brennan. And Patricia, I think we need to have a separate discussion about your conduct as president. Patricia grabbed her papers and purse. Fine. Do whatever you want. I quit. She stormed out of the room. The remaining board members looked relieved. Robert turned to me. Mr. Brennan, on behalf of the HOA, I apologize. Your dock is fine. You will not receive any further letters about this. The meeting dissolved into conversations. Several neighbors came up to shake my hand and congratulate me. A few mentioned they had also received questionable letters from Patricia and were glad someone had finally pushed back. Jennifer packed up her briefcase. Well, that went better than expected. Is it really over? Unless she decides to sue the HOA or you personally, yes, but I doubt she will. She has no case, and litigation would expose her real estate scheme. She will probably just move on to harassing people in another neighborhood. We walked out into the rainy night. I felt lighter than I had in days, but things were not quite over. 2 days later, I was on my dock early Wednesday morning when I noticed something odd. Several boards near the end of the dock looked damaged, with fresh scratches and splintering that had not been there the day before. I knelt down to examine them more closely. The damage looked deliberate, like someone had taken a pry bar to the wood. I took photos and called Jennifer. Sounds like vandalism, she said. File a police report and check if any neighbors have security cameras that might have caught something. I called the Anderson County Sheriff's Department and filed a report. A deputy came out that afternoon, took photos, and asked questions. I explained the HOA dispute. He nodded knowingly. We have had a few calls about HOA issues in this neighborhood lately. Let me see what I can find out. That evening, I knocked on doors. Tom had a security camera that faced his driveway but might have caught something. He pulled up the footage on his laptop. At 2:30 a.m. the previous night, a dark sedan had driven slowly down our street and parked near my house for about 10 minutes before leaving. Can you see the plates? I asked. Tom enhanced the image as much as his system allowed. The plates were not clear, but the car was distinctive, a newer model BMW with a light-colored exterior. Patricia drives a white BMW, Tom said quietly. I saw it at the meeting. We saved the footage to a thumb drive, and I called the deputy back. He came by again, reviewed the video, and took notes. I will follow up on this. If it was intentional vandalism related to your dispute, that is a criminal matter. Thursday morning, I was working from home when the doorbell rang. 2 sheriff's deputies stood on my porch. Mr. Brennan, we wanted to update you on your vandalism report. We spoke with Patricia Morrison yesterday evening. She denied any involvement initially, but we pointed out that her vehicle matched the description from your neighbor's security footage. She then admitted to going to your property Tuesday night. She admitted it. She claimed she was just checking to see if you had removed the dock as she had requested. She says she did not damage anything and that the damage must have been there before. But it was not. I was on that dock Tuesday afternoon. It was fine. We explained that. We also explained that coming onto your property in the middle of the night without permission constitutes trespassing. And given the timing and the damage discovered the next morning, we have probable cause to believe she caused the vandalism. What happens now? We have charged her with criminal trespassing and malicious injury to property. Both are misdemeanors. She will have a court date in about 6 weeks. We wanted to let you know. After they left, I called Jennifer and filled her in. Good, she said. Criminal charges add weight if you decide to pursue civil action for damages and harassment. Keep documenting everything. The neighborhood was buzzing by that evening. News of Patricia's arrest spread quickly. Robert called me to apologize again and explained that the board was reviewing all of Patricia's actions during her term to ensure nothing else inappropriate had occurred. We found some concerning things, he admitted. She had been sending letters to multiple homeowners claiming various violations that were not actually in the bylaws. A few people paid fines that were not legitimate. We are going to refund them and probably need to bring in an outside auditor. How did she get away with it for so long? Honestly, nobody was paying attention. Most people do not want to be on the HOA board. It is a thankless job. She volunteered enthusiastically, so we were grateful. We should have been more careful. Over the next few weeks, I repaired the damage to my dock. The cost was minimal, about $200 in materials, since I did the work myself. I documented everything for the criminal case. Patricia's court date arrived in early August. I took the morning off work to attend. The courtroom was small, with maybe a dozen other cases on the docket. Patricia sat near the front with a lawyer, a bored-looking public defender who clearly had multiple clients that morning. When her case was called, the prosecutor laid out the facts efficiently. The security footage, the damage to my dock, Patricia's admission to being on my property, and the timing all pointed to her guilt. Her lawyer tried to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, but the judge was not convinced. Miss Morrison, do you dispute that you went to Mr. Brennan's property at 2:30 in the morning? No, Your Honor, but I did not damage anything. I just wanted to see if he had complied with the HOA requirements. You do not have the right to go onto someone else's property in the middle of the night to check on anything. That is called trespassing, and the timing of the damage is not coincidental. I am finding you guilty of both charges. The judge sentenced her to 100 hours of community service, a $500 fine, and probation for 6 months. He also issued a no-contact order prohibiting her from communicating with me directly or indirectly. As we left the courtroom, Patricia glared at me. Her lawyer pulled her away quickly. Jennifer, who had attended for support, nodded approvingly. That should be the end of it. If she violates the no-contact order, she goes to jail. But there was one more twist. 3 weeks later, I received a notice from the county. Patricia had filed a property line dispute, claiming that my survey was incorrect and that my dock actually extended beyond my property boundaries into public waterway. She was requesting a new survey and potentially an injunction against my dock pending resolution. I called Jennifer immediately, my frustration boiling over. Can she seriously keep doing this? She lost the HOA fight, she got convicted of vandalism, and now she is trying again, Jennifer sighed. Unfortunately, yes, anyone can file a property dispute, but this one will not go anywhere. Your survey is recent, official, and filed with the county. She would need actual evidence that it is wrong, not just her say-so, and filing frivolous claims could get her sanctioned. So what do I do? We respond formally, provide all the same documentation again, and let the county surveyor review it. They will confirm your survey is accurate and the case will be dismissed. It will take a few weeks, but should not cost you much. She was right. The county surveyor came out in September, reviewed my original survey, took new measurements, and confirmed everything was accurate. The property line did indeed extend 50 feet into the water. My dock was well within my boundaries. Patricia's claim was dismissed with a note in the file that it appeared to be frivolous. I thought that was finally the end. Then in October, I got a call from Robert, the HOA board member. Zach, I wanted to give you a heads up. Patricia is suing the HOA. For what? She claims we violated her rights as president by overruling her decisions and forcing her resignation. She is asking for damages and demanding reinstatement. That is insane. It is also not going anywhere, according to our lawyer. But I wanted you to know in case she tries to drag you into it. Patricia did try to drag me into it. Her lawsuit claimed that I had conspired with other board members to undermine her authority, and that my refusal to remove the dock was part of a larger pattern of homeowners disrespecting the HOA. She named me as a co-defendant along with the HOA itself. Jennifer was livid. This is harassment, pure and simple. We are going to file a motion to dismiss and a counterclaim for abuse of process. She is using the legal system to continue harassing you, and that is not allowed. The motion to dismiss was heard in November. Patricia represented herself this time, apparently unable to afford a lawyer for a civil suit. She rambled for 10 minutes about community standards, property values, and her vision for Willow Creek. The judge listened patiently, then asked a simple question. Miss Morrison, do you have any evidence that Mr. Brennan's dock violates any law, regulation, or enforceable HOA rule? It violates the spirit of the community agreement, Your Honor. That is not a legal standard. Do you have any actual evidence of a violation? The board should have supported my decision as president. That is also not how HOAs work. The board voted and you lost. That is not a legal injury. Your case is dismissed. And I am sanctioning you $5,000 for filing a frivolous lawsuit. You knew or should have known this had no merit. Patricia turned pale. I cannot afford that. You should have thought of that before you filed a baseless suit. Dismissed. As we left the courthouse, Jennifer turned to me. That should really be the end now. Between the criminal conviction, the sanctions, and the failed property dispute, she has no ammunition left, and she cannot afford to keep fighting. I hope you are right. I did not hear anything more from Patricia directly. But in December, I learned from Tom that she had put her house up for sale. Apparently, the legal fees, fines, and sanctions had drained her resources. Her real estate flipping scheme had backfired spectacularly. The house sold in January to a nice couple with 2 kids who introduced themselves the day they moved in. They asked about the neighborhood and seemed genuinely excited about the community. When they mentioned they had heard there had been some HOA drama, I just smiled. It is all settled now. Quiet neighborhood, friendly people, and the board leaves you alone as long as you mow your lawn. They laughed. As winter turned to spring, life in Willow Creek returned to normal. The HOA held elections and Robert was voted in as president with a mandate to keep things simple and transparent. They published all the bylaws online, created a clear process for approvals, and held regular meetings where anyone could raise concerns. I spent more time on my dock as the weather warmed. The damage from Patricia's vandalism was long repaired, and I had added a couple of comfortable chairs and a small table. It became my favorite spot to have morning coffee, read in the evenings, and occasionally fish on weekends. One Saturday in April, I was on the dock when Frank and Susan walked down with fishing rods. "Mind if we join you?" Frank asked. "Not at all." We spent a pleasant afternoon catching bass and sunfish. Susan brought sandwiches and beer. We did not talk much about the Patricia drama, though Susan did mention she had heard Patricia had moved to Charlotte and was working as a regular real estate agent now, not a developer. "Probably for the best," Frank said. "For her and for us." As the sun started to set, painting the lake in shades of orange and pink, I looked at my dock stretching out into the water. It had been a lot of headaches, legal fees, and stress. But sitting there with good neighbors on a beautiful evening, I knew I had made the right choice in fighting back. Nobody had the right to take away something I had built legally on my own property, no matter how much they tried to twist the rules. The dock represented more than just a structure. It represented standing up for yourself, knowing your rights and refusing to be bullied. Tom and his wife walked down around sunset with drinks in hand. "Dock party?" Tom asked. "Impromptu, but sure." 2 other neighbors saw us and came down. Before long, there were 10 of us sitting on and around my dock, talking and laughing as the stars came out. Someone mentioned that we should make it a monthly thing, a neighborhood gathering on the water. "The dock party," Susan suggested, "has a nice ring to it." Everyone agreed, and so it became a tradition. Every first Saturday, weather permitting, neighbors would gather on my dock. People brought food, drinks, and stories. Kids fished off the end. Dogs ran around on the shore. It became the heart of the neighborhood in a way that HOA meetings and bylaws never could. By summer, word had spread to other parts of Willow Creek. People from non-waterfront houses asked if they could join. Of course they could. The whole point was community, real community, not the forced version Patricia had tried to impose through threats and harassment. In July, a local newspaper ran a story about neighborhood initiatives that build community connections. Someone had nominated our dock parties, and a reporter came out to interview me. I explained how it had started, carefully avoiding too much detail about the HOA fight. "It is just about giving people a space to connect," I told her. "No agenda, no rules, just neighbors being neighbors." The article ran with a photo of about 20 people crowded onto and around my dock, everyone smiling. The headline read, "Community Dock Brings Neighbors Together." I framed it and hung it in my garage next to the permits for the dock construction. A few weeks after the article, I got an email from Patricia. Despite the no-contact order having expired after her probation, I was surprised to hear from her. The email was brief. "Mr. Brennan, I saw the article about your dock parties. I wanted to apologize for everything that happened. I let my business ambitions cloud my judgment, and I treated you and other neighbors badly. What you have built is what I claim to want for the community. I just went about it entirely wrong. I hope you can forgive me. Patricia Morrison." I stared at the email for a long time, part of me wanted to ignore it. She had caused me months of stress, cost me thousands in legal fees, vandalized my property, and tried multiple times to force me to tear down something I loved. An email apology seemed insufficient. But another part of me remembered what Jennifer had said early in the dispute. Most HOA conflicts come from people who start with good intentions, but let power or money corrupt them. Maybe Patricia had genuinely believed she was helping the neighborhood at first. Maybe she had gotten in over her head financially with her real estate investments and made bad choices. People were complicated, I wrote back. Patricia, I appreciate the apology. What happened was difficult for everyone involved. I hope you have found a better path forward. I wish you well. Zach. I never heard from her again, and that was fine. As fall arrived again, marking 2 years since the first letter demanding I remove my dock, I sat on the end of the structure one morning with my coffee, watching mist rise off the water. The dock had weathered 2 winters now and still looked solid. I had built it right, designed to last. Zachary Brennan, the guy who almost lost his dock to an HOA power trip, had become Zach, the guy with the community dock where everyone gathered. It was funny how things worked out. Robert stopped by that morning while I was sitting there. Got a minute? He asked, always. Coffee? Sure. He sat in the chair next to mine and we watched the lake in comfortable silence for a moment. The board wanted me to officially recognize what you did, Robert finally said. You stood up to someone who was abusing their authority, and in doing so, you probably saved a dozen other homeowners from similar harassment. Patricia had a list, we found out. She was working her way through every waterfront property owner with some manufactured complaint or another. You stopped that. I just wanted to keep my dock, maybe so, but it mattered. And these dock parties, this community you have built, it is exactly what an HOA should support, not tear down. So on behalf of the board, thank you. We shook hands. After he left, I stayed on the dock for another hour. A heron landed at the far end, fishing in the shallows. A kayaker paddled by and waved. The sun climbed higher, burning off the mist. My property line extended 50 feet into the water and my dock was only 30 feet long. Those 20 extra feet represented possibility, room to grow, space I owned but had not needed to use yet. Maybe someday I would extend the dock all the way to the property line. Maybe I would add a covered section for shade. Maybe I would leave it exactly as it was. The point was that it was my choice. My property, my rights, my decision. That was what I had fought for, and that was what I had won. The dock stayed, the community grew stronger, and life went on. Sometimes standing your ground meant legal battles and stress and expense. But sometimes it also meant creating something better than what was there before, something that brought people together rather than drove them apart. I finished my coffee and headed back to the house. I had work to do, but I would be back on the dock that evening. I always was. It was my sanctuary, my victory, and my contribution to a neighborhood that had learned the hard way what community really meant. The Willow Creek HOA still existed, of course. Someone had to maintain the common areas and collect dues for shared expenses. But under Robert's leadership, it operated transparently, fairly, and with respect for homeowners' rights. They focused on the basics, keeping the entrance landscaped, maintaining the community center, organizing the annual yard sale, and left people alone to enjoy their homes as they saw fit. Every so often, a new homeowner would move in and ask about HOA restrictions, clearly traumatized by experiences in other neighborhoods. We would smile and hand them a simple, clearly written list of basic rules. No, you cannot paint your house neon pink. Yes, you need to mow your lawn reasonably often. No, We will not measure the exact length of your grass or tell you what color your curtains should be. And if you want to build a dock and you have waterfront property, just make sure you get the county permits and let us know. We will approve it at the next meeting, assuming it is not something crazy. That was how it should work. As the months rolled on, my dock became a fixture of neighborhood life in a way I never could have anticipated. That morning, I received Patricia's first letter. Children learned to fish from it. Teenagers hung out there on summer evenings. One couple got engaged at the end of it during a particularly beautiful sunset. A memorial service was held there when Frank passed away suddenly in his sleep. One night we scattered his ashes in the water he had loved, surrounded by the community he had helped protect. Susan still came down to fish, usually early mornings when the lake was quiet. We would sit together in companionable silence, two people who had been through battle together and come out the other side. The legal fees had totaled about $4,000 by the time everything was finished. The dock had cost me $3,000 to build. $7,000 total to defend something that was rightfully mine all along. It stung, but it was worth it. Some things you cannot put a price on. Jennifer called me occasionally, usually when she had another HOA case and wanted to use mine as an example. She said I was her favorite success story, the client who fought back and actually won decisively. She kept the framed article about the dock parties in her office waiting area. Reminds potential clients that sometimes standing up to bullies creates something beautiful, she explained. My dock represented more than just my personal victory. It became a symbol in the neighborhood of homeowner rights, of community over control, of people over property values. When disputes arose, people would reference it. Remember what happened with Zach's dock. Let's not be like Patricia. It set a tone. I eventually did extend the dock, not all the way to my property line, but another 10 feet. I added a small platform at the end with a bench, perfect for reading on quiet afternoons. I kept the design simple and functional, the same composite materials that required minimal maintenance. Nobody from the HOA objected. Robert came by while I was building it, looked at the plans I had drawn up and just nodded. Looks good. Thanks for letting us know. Want help with the construction? He and 2 other board members spent a Saturday helping me install the extension. We worked efficiently, and by late afternoon, the new section was complete. We christened it with beer and fishing, a tradition that felt appropriate. Years passed. The story of my fight with Patricia became part of neighborhood lore, told to new residents as a cautionary tale and a success story. Details got exaggerated over time. I heard one version where I had actually sued Patricia for $100,000 and won, which was not remotely true, but I did not bother correcting it. The spirit of the story mattered more than the exact facts. The dock itself aged gracefully. The composite materials held up well, requiring only occasional cleaning. I replaced a few boards that got damaged during a particularly bad storm one winter, but otherwise, it remained solid and stable. I had built it to last, and it did. One spring morning, 5 years after the whole ordeal began, I sat on the dock with my coffee as usual. The lake was glass calm, reflecting perfect mirror images of the trees along the shore. A fish jumped nearby, sending ripples across the surface. My phone rang. It was Robert. "Hey, Zach, got some interesting news. Remember Patricia Morrison? Hard to forget. She is back in real estate news. Just got arrested in Charlotte for fraud. Apparently, she has been running a scheme targeting HOAs again, but this time she got caught forging documents and embezzling HOA funds. Pretty serious charges. Thought you would want to know." After we hung up, I sat with that information. Part of me felt vindicated clearly. Patricia had not learned from our conflict and had continued her pattern of behavior until it finally caught up with her in a big way. Part of me just felt sad. She could have used her energy and ambition for legitimate business, but she kept choosing the wrong path. I did not follow the case closely, but I read later that she had been convicted and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Multiple HOAs in the Charlotte area had been victims of her schemes, with total losses in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some homeowners had lost their life savings. It reinforced what I had learned through my own experience. You cannot let people with bad intentions abuse small amounts of power. Whether it is an HOA president, a local official, or any other position of minor authority, unchecked power corrupts. Standing up to it matters, even when it is expensive and exhausting. My dock stood as a testament to that principle. It was still there, still solid, still serving the community. The fight to keep it had been worth every dollar, every hour of stress, every moment of frustration. Because in the end, it was not really about a dock. It was about knowing your rights, standing your ground, and refusing to let bullies win. It was about community built on genuine connection rather than arbitrary rules. It was about property rights and personal freedom, and the simple dignity of being able to enjoy what was rightfully yours. As I sat there that morning, watching the sun climb higher and the lake come alive with activity, I felt a deep sense of contentment. My property line extended 50 feet into the water, and my dock, now 40 feet long with its extension, still did not even reach the boundary. That extra space remained, representing potential, possibility, and the freedom to choose. The HOA never bothered me again about the dock or anything else. I paid my dues, mowed my lawn, and lived my life. The dock parties continued every month, growing and evolving but maintaining their core purpose of bringing people together. Sometimes visitors would ask about the dock's history, and I would tell them the story. Usually, I kept it simple, just a mention of an HOA dispute that got resolved. Occasionally, if someone seemed particularly interested or was dealing with their own HOA issues, I would share more details and give them Jennifer's contact information. Fight back if you are in the right, I always advised. Document everything, know your rights, and do not let them intimidate you. Most HOA bullies fold when you stand up to them with facts and legal representation. Several people took that advice over the years. Jennifer got multiple referrals from me, and most of those cases were resolved favorably. Word spread that homeowners had rights, that HOA boards could not just make arbitrary decisions, and that fighting back was possible. It created ripples, much like that fish jumping had created ripples on the lake's surface. Small actions, expanding outward, making a difference. My dock remained the center of it all, literal and metaphorical. A piece of well-built infrastructure that had survived legal challenges, vandalism, frivolous lawsuits, and years of weather. It stood because it was built right, because it was defended properly, and because it served a real purpose beyond just being a structure. As the sun reached its peak that day, I stood and stretched. Time to get back to regular life work, errands, all the mundane tasks that filled days. But I would be back on the dock that evening and tomorrow morning and the day after. It was my routine, my sanctuary, my reminder that standing up for what was right mattered. The fight to keep my dock had taught me valuable lessons about property rights, legal processes, community organizing, and personal courage. It had cost money and time and stress, but it had also created something lasting and valuable. The dock itself, yes, but also a stronger community, clearer HOA governance, and a story that helped others facing similar battles. Looking back on everything from that first threatening letter to this peaceful morning 5 years later, I would not change a thing. Well, maybe I would have preferred to skip the vandalism and legal fees. But the outcome, the journey, the lessons learned, all of it shaped who I had become and how our neighborhood had evolved. My property line extended 50 feet into the water, and within those boundaries, I had built something that mattered. Not just a dock, but a community gathering place, a symbol of homeowner rights, and a reminder that sometimes you have to fight for what is yours. The dock stayed. The community grew stronger, and life in Willow Creek continued, peaceful and free from the tyranny of HOA overreach. That was exactly as it should be.